The tragedy is, even the gang members were talking to us being like, man, like this one guy was like, I tried to get out of this, I wanted to be a musician, and then I guess I didn't work hard enough, and I'm back here now. And this is a guy who's like talking to us in a balaclava with a rifle, having taken us away from like the gunfight. And it's just like, it's really sad there. But the thing about it is, the people there were way more scared of the police, because in that actual favela where we were, Fogotero, I think 3 years ago, they executed, and I mean executed, 13 men, disarmed, on their knees, executed them and then put them in a bin.
All right, Jake. Good to see you, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, great to see you, man.
Do you know, I've had 3 podcasts in my time, and I think you're the only one now who would have been on all 3.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Because
it's been a long time.
You came on the Bitcoin show, you came on Defiance, and now this. I can't even remember when I last saw you.
I think it would have been that, Defiance. I mean, we speak, but actually see it, I think it would have been, in Bedford.
Yeah, man. It's good to see you doing well, bro.
Trying, mate, trying.
You look healthy.
Yeah. Getting older now. I'm 35 tomorrow.
Well, so listen, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Happy birthday for tomorrow. What are you doing for it?
I don't know. Just work.
Always working.
Yeah.
So we're in a crazy fucking world, and conflicts everywhere. And more often than not, when I see people having their opinions online, I'm always thinking to myself, what would Jake think? Jake's a guy I know who knows more about this than anyone. He's the guy who's had the balls to go up on the front line. And so I'm always thinking, what would Jake think? So I've got loads I want to cover with you, but generally speaking, world is a bit fucked up at the moment. It's great for business with Popular Front, but we don't really want it to be a good time for you with Popular Front. We don't want you to have too much content.
No, yeah. And it is actually like, after been Popular Front will be like 6-7 years this year in May. And it is, I'm at a point now where it's kind of like, wow, things have got so much worse since we started it. And you see a lot of these kind of statistics, and statisticians are like, oh, well, statistically, it's never been a safer time. We only live in the time right now, and they're not really out there. Do you know what I mean? And I think as well, it doesn't factor in like mind state of where things are going. So I think things are quite bad. It's not, people say, is World War III coming? No, I don't think so. I don't even think you'll even know when World War III starts, if it does. But it's looking a lot worse than it did. Yeah, I think, yeah, to be like negative, unfortunately, at the start. But yeah, it's not looking good.
Just for people who don't know you, just give them some context. Like, how many conflict zones have you directly been in?
So I'm like I said, I'm 35 tomorrow. First time I went properly to a front line, I think I was 24. So that's like 11 years now.
Was that at Vice?
Vice, yeah. So when I was working at Vice News back in the day, I kind of got my start there. Started covering like riots and stuff like that. And before I knew it, I was in Iraq on the front line there when the fight against ISIS, Ukraine, Palestine, everywhere. We've been Syria, Armenia, yeah, a lot, a lot, like maybe a dozen, you know what I mean? Which back and forth quite a lot. I mean, like Ukraine, I've been like maybe 10 times, do you know what I mean? So definitely more than a dozen, different kind of like contentious areas, but within that dozen, back and forth, many times.
Let's start with Ukraine then, because that's close to us.
Mm-hmm.
And probably a bit like me, you're split between seeing opinions from people in Europe and then opinions from people in America. And it's quite different. Certainly on the Republican side of America, it's quite different. There almost feels like there feels like a Republican side of America that feels a little bit sympathetic to Putin at times, which I always find a bit odd. And then there's this other kind of side which is a little bit more critical. They want to be critical of Zelensky and critical of Ukraine, and they talk about Nazis and corruption and blah, blah, blah. And Zelensky's one of the most corrupt people there is. Although I did see today, they just prosecute they've prosecuted somebody in the army, the Ukrainian army. I think it's like the guy deals with psychological issues for corruption.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, by the by,
he's pretty corrupt, but
yeah, he's pretty corrupt.
He's a politician.
Yeah. But like, what do people not understand about that conflict? What do you like from your experience?
I think for me, the thing they don't understand is no one on the ground cares what you think on Twitter. You know, that's the reality. No one is going, hang on, wait, I better check the ideology of the troops coming to save me just so some randomer in America is happy about it. It's the same when the communists got mad with the Kurds in northeast Syria because they accepted help from America. And if you boil that down, essentially what they're saying is you should perish and die instead of making a compromise to make us random communists somewhere happy. It's that simple, and it's the same with the Republicans doing it. I think what they don't understand is Ukraine's in a rock and a hard place, right? So a lot of Ukrainians right now are very they're not very happy with Zelensky. You know, there's certain moves he's made that they're not happy with. Unfortunately, you don't really hear that side of things so much because the media here has kind of created this almost God king out of him. And don't get me wrong, I respect him as like a wartime leader, but again, he's a politician. You know, politicians are politicians always. And there's a lot of
I think the media's
people...
made him look stupid.
Do you think? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time they make out like, you know, like he's here, he's there, he's like this kind of uncriticizable being, whereas, you know, he makes mistakes like anybody else. But I'm not that bothered about him. I don't really care, you know. Like, I know people right now on the front lines. We've lost people, like friends, you know. And for me, I talk to people like that. That's what we do with Popular Front. We've always said, like, it's for the people. And that's not really a politically charged statement. It means we don't really care about the discourse, you know. If I know someone that's fighting on the front line, when I get there, I'm not going to be, hey, by the way, there's this like 1,000 retweeted thread on Twitter about, they're going to be like, what? Like, they don't care. You know, real life doesn't really care about the discourse. I really believe that. But I have some understanding where you've got someone in America that's like, right, I'm in the Rust Belt, I've got no money. Why is my government sending all this money there? And I think, unfortunately, because the way things are now, that doesn't necessarily get explained like that. It comes across as, I don't care about Ukraine, I don't care about this. No one's saying you have to, but don't be so callous to be like, oh yeah, who cares if like civilians are dying, and then side with literally the country that invaded. I don't really see it as a political opinion. It's objective. One side crosses the border, it's an invasion, you fight back, you know, and at the end of the day, it's like, it's not perfect. Yes, there's Nazis on the side of Ukraine. It's Eastern Europe. Like, welcome to Eastern Europe. It's chaos. But what those people don't mention is there's Nazis per capita more, actually, in the Donbass. So you got a battalion called Rusich, which is the biggest, not connected to the Kremlin militia there. It's an openly neo-Nazi militia. There's less people fighting in the Donbass on that side. So you could argue quite accurately that per capita, there's actually more neo-Nazi units fighting on the Russian side. If you bring that up to the pro-Russians, they kind of just kind of like skirt away from it. They say, well, it doesn't matter, at least they're fighting. It's like, well, isn't that the same argument that people have in Ukraine that you're so angry about? So I think it's like, you know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, you know. I think really the focus should be on where this is all going to head to afterwards. And I do think it's a problem that there are like far-right units who have literally been given like American howitzers. It will come to bite someone in the ass eventually. But that's not the fault of the people on the ground dying and getting killed. There's many different units, you know. We made a film with a anti-fascist football hooligan unit, you know, and now fighting on the front line. Their commander is dead. There's a anarcho-ecologist unit, which you won't hear about, eco-platform. There's a whole anarchist battalion. You know what I mean? It's like there's various different ideologies. And because they're in real life, they have to work together. You know, I know lads in the Antifa unit that have knocked out like Nazis that they then have to kind of be like, you're right, can we have some bullets? Let's share. You know what I mean? And, you know, he's like, oh, it's really awkward. Like, we knocked him out like a couple of years back, but now they're at war. There's obviously bigger issues, you know? It's like, I think of it like this. If we got invaded tomorrow, you would go, right, let's stop that, right? You want to go, hang on, I need to know ideologically.
Oh, you just stop oil?
Yeah, you know what I mean? You just go like, let's just fight. And I think the discourse, people get lost. They forget that, you know, they forget the very practical situations where it's like fight or die. Simple as that, really. And I think that a lot of people kind of try and intellectualize that, but it's always that with war, you know?
What is the actual situation there on the front line? Because at the point where Russia invaded, my assumption was this would be quick and decisive, even though we've seen the difficulties, say, the US had in Afghanistan. My assumption was Russia has enough firepower. They could just obliterate Kiev and destroy the Ukrainian army. Yet here we are, what, 2 years later, are we?
Nearly 3, yeah.
Nearly 3 years later, and it's an ongoing war. And to be honest, I don't think any of us really have an understanding of what the status of the war is.
That's a really good point. It's kind of got lost actually because of the discourse. It's at a stage now, from what I understand, it changes so rapidly. Like, that's the thing about a frontline. It's not static ever, and it's not a line. It's never a line, you know. It's like this fractured kind of jigsaw. Where it's at now is kind of getting to the stage that it was at pre-full-scale invasion. A lot more harder, a lot more violence, and a lot more fighting. But it's becoming sectioned off a little bit towards the east. It's a lot further in than it was, but it's definitely sectioned off. You do, of course, have like bombings on Kiev and stuff like this, and just regular attacks on civilians. Like, apartments are getting bombed all the time, but it's definitely not as rapid as it was. There is an issue, I think, where through whatever decisions have been made on the military level, from what I understand from fighters, some of the best commanders are either dead or put in positions where they are not as helpful. There's a lot of confusion I hear from the ground, and people say,
on the Ukrainian side,
yeah. I don't really know about the Russian side as much, because obviously I'm biased to some degree on the Ukrainian side. But I do know that, like, you know, people say, oh, well, soldiers are always complaining about this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, they are there. You know, they can see it right as it is. So I think they do have it's okay for them to do that. And I do know there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of what some people I've heard of, often like mismanagement within frontline positions. But then it's the same. I mean, I don't know people directly there, but if you look at the Telegram and you like hear what fighters are saying, there is a lot of disarray on the other side as well. And I do think, it's an unpopular opinion, but I do think there's more people out there that are like, let's just work out a compromise than is expected, I think, you know. And I do think the reason it was not this like blitzkrieg from Russia, it's not to be romantic about it, but like the Ukrainian people and the people fighting, there's real heart in that, you know. Okay, yeah, there's definitely a lot of Western weapons, but weapons alone don't win, you know what I mean? There has to be like a lot of heart to push, and I really do think that they've held that up. But now it's getting to a point where it's like, where does this go? Obviously Trump is now in power, and that has a big effect. We'll see what happens. I know this morning, actually, I spoke to someone who's in Kramatorsk on a frontline position or near, and they're saying like there's just some weird activity, like jets every 10 minutes, whereas it was quiet for the last 2 or 3 months. Quiet, you know what I mean? So something's happening. We'll see what happens, but I think short answer is like disarray quite badly. Yeah, and I'm not trying to be like negative about it. People don't like it, especially people that are very, very pro-Ukraine. Like, you shouldn't say this. It's like, well, I'm not PR, you know, I'm not a press relations. I'm a journalist, and I'm going to say what I know is happening from people I know out there. I know people out there that are on the front, and they've been like, why is your press kind of saying this? Because we're not seeing this. We're having issues, and they're acting like everything's fine. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. It's not helpful.
Is the disarray coming from the fact that Ukraine didn't really have a large army to begin with, and it's kind of because we know that they, for example, they stopped people leaving. They stopped men of a certain age leaving the country. They had to stay and fight. And trying to organise that is just a very difficult problem for a small country with a small army.
I mean, that was true when the revolution happened, like 2014. But since then, their army got like very highly skilled because they were getting lots of Western training. Several, people within the military units and the militia units kind of brought everything together, and it was very good for what it was. I think, I don't really know too much about like tactics and stuff like this, but I think there's a mix of like the left hand is not always shaking the right hand, like one commander says this and then there's that over there. From what I understand from people on the ground, the issue is communication a lot, and there's an issue with bureaucracy all of a sudden. But the conscription, we do it. If it happened here, like our military is absolutely minuscule in terms of new people joining up each year. It would definitely happen here if we got invaded. They'd have to conscript, But when you have to conscript, obviously you don't have the best fighters, right? Because right now as well, there is a problem where like the conscription officers are having to like drag people out their homes and make them go and fight. That's not gonna be good for morale. It's not gonna be the best fighting force you can have if people are like, I don't want to fight and I'm getting captured and sent there, So it's the same with any war, though. It's not like a down on Ukraine. I think it's just, it ends up like that eventually. The kind of fervor kind of dies down a little bit, and it's at a point now where, yeah, they're struggling for manpower. I mean, Russia's also struggling, but
they've got Koreans, haven't they?
I don't know if that's true. I think that's a bit of there's no real proof. There's evidence, but I don't know. I think that was a bit of a PR move to get it back in the news and stuff like this. But I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but I don't think it is. But Russia, I mean, look at all the firepower they had. Like you said, like, why are they not doing this, that, and the other? They're clearly not who people thought they were, but I think they can wait it out longer. That seems to be the way with
attrition.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the way now with, like, even with riots. Like, you look at France, we had the mad riots the last couple of years. They can just go, we'll just let everybody tire out, and then nothing really changed. So I think that similar thing is maybe in the mind of the tactic over there. But Putin is a yes man, you know, and he surrounded himself by yes men because they're all scared. And I think that will eventually be the downfall of him, rather than like, you know, they lost the war. I think it's going to happen that way, where someone's going to go, right, they've made a deal somewhere else. Like, sorry, mate, you're out. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not, though. I mean, like, he's insulated himself to the point where that's very difficult to happen, but you never know these days, you know.
What is it like going on a front line? You know, for someone like me who has no understanding, experience, the only front line I've seen is war films on,
yeah,
like, you know, people in bunkers and tunnels in films. I've got no idea.
It's not as all active as you think. So half the time you're just sitting around, like, drinking coffees, drinking teas, chatting to soldiers. Nothing's happening for hours and hours and hours. But when it does happen, everything happens. You know what I mean? It very quickly kind of explodes. And I think the thing about it is I can only talk from a journalist perspective, right? So I'm there, I'm not armed, you know, I don't have a weapon, obviously. So if bullets go, I'm getting behind the wall, or I'm putting my head down in the trench, you know what I mean? I'm not up above the trench like the soldiers are. So from my perspective, it's really unusual, because you're sitting there chilling or whatever, and then all of a sudden it kicks off and you just kind of hiding. You know what I mean? And it's like, you're not really there to hide, obviously. You're not there to fight as well, but you're there to kind of document what's happening. But it's a weird thing where you're like, well, I'm scared, I'm hiding, my head's down, I don't want to be, you know, a problem to any of the soldiers. So you kind of just kind of get in your position, but then you also need to kind of gather the information as you're going. So it's a lot going on all at once, or it's nothing going on, you know. It is scary, but I think when you choose to go to the front line, like, I put myself in that position, you know what I mean? I've got only myself to blame. So it's a little bit easier for me to kind of operate there, because I already kind of knew what I was getting myself in for, to some degree, even before I went, you know. After I've been to so many now, I mean, each one is different, but there's also similarities with every single one. So I guess now it's kind of like, you know, I'm kind of like used to it in some way.
I would shit myself.
I mean, you do, yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not like super brave, like, or anything. I have been like, right, what the fuck am I doing here? You know what I mean? But at the same time, there are ways to mitigate, like, the risk, you know. Like, definitely as I've got a little bit older, and I was a little bit too reckless when I was younger, I've kind of scaled that back, definitely, because I don't want to die, you know. And it is just a job at the end of the day. Like, a lot of journalists try and make out like it's this kind of like super like legacy thing. It's a good job, I love it, and it's important, but let's not pretend, you know what I mean? So I don't want to die for it. No one will remember you. And I have responsibilities, you know, I have a family and stuff like that. So there are ways, like, there's the zero line, which is essentially the front line, which, you know, I've been to many times, but that's just a no man's land in between you and the enemy, right? Or the other side or whatever. That's like obviously the most hardest, most hectic thing. But then you get like another front line behind that, and another front line behind that, or a position over here. So now I definitely would be like, I don't need to go to the zero line. I don't necessarily need to take that risk. And you often actually get a lot better information from the other front lines that are a little bit further back. It's not as hectic. People are not as on edge, you know. So I've really learned that, like, actually, you do need to go to the front if you want to document war, because you want to show, look, this is how it is, this is how it's happening, and you get an idea of where it's going. But I think you don't need to be there all the time. When I was younger, I was like, we have to be on the front all day long, you know what I mean? And I think that was probably a little bit of like personal ego, which I've definitely, after, you know, when, you know, mortar rounds go over your head enough times, you either go one way, you either go like, yeah, this is me, like, or you go like, right, don't need to take that risk every time anymore. You know?
Do you find yourself looking for a different story now, though?
Yeah, I mean, for example, Ukraine, we're just talking about, that's probably a good example. The documentary we did there with Popular Front after the war happened, there's loads of reporters there. And I was like, well, we're never going to be first. We're independent. We don't have the resources, but we do have access that no one else has, because of the way we conduct ourselves, the way we do things, the way we see things. And so, we found this unit, there were, one of the most hardcore hooligan firms in the whole of Ukraine, and they were anti-fascist, which is extremely rare in Eastern Europe as it is. There is like quite a sizable anti-fascist hooligan scene all across Europe. It's less heard of, but, it is there. But these lads were like hardcore, even the Nazi hooligans would be like, yeah, those guys are tough, and I found that, but then found that now that the war has kicked off, hooligans know how to organize, they know how to operate. So they launched a unit, they got a load of guns, and they're like, right, protect our country, off we go. And so that for us was a really unique story that no one else had, you know what I mean? So I think that's the way I look at things now. It's like, well, what's an interesting kind of facet to that war that will tell the story, a different side of the war that people otherwise won't know. Anyone can go, here's the front line, here's some bombing, here's what happened. That's great, you need that. But for us, it's like we're not really trying to do quick dispatches in that sense. We want something unique, and that's what we got. And that's what I'm always trying to look for, like a different angle to what's going on. Or with this new series I'm doing, Away Days, just something completely out there that no one can really, either they haven't seen that side to it or they haven't got to it.
Away Days, right? Hold on.
Yeah, that's my new series, and that's like away from war. It's a totally different thing.
We're going to come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very like you were at Vice.
I was at Vice.
Vice used to do some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I miss Vice.
They're coming back,
Well, this is what I hear. I've watched a couple of Shane Smith interviews recently as well, which I thought was quite interesting. He's back out talking. But I've missed it. I've missed the unique way they used to tell a story. I still think the work they did in North Korea is some of the best most interesting journalistic work that we've had. But I do want to stay on this because the other thing, the thing I think, if I went, and I haven't been, but if I went, I'd be most interested in knowing how normal life carries on around war. Yeah, we see in Kiev when the bombs come in, and I know pretty well that war, like life carries on pretty normal in Kiev. There's occasional bombing raids and people, but right on the front line, there's still villages there, and people still living in their villages. How does normal life carry on around a front line or close to a front line?
That's a really good point, because you do see these kind of like, going back to the discourse people on Twitter, they're like, look, see, some even say it's like not a real war because there's people that are just like chilling. Like I've literally been like having a pizza, and then an air raid siren comes and everyone's like, they don't even go to a shelter anymore. That is life. Every war I've been to, people just carry on, and it's unbelievable. That's one of the most interesting things for me, actually, is the resilience of like normal people. You'll see the worst and best of humanity in war, and people just kind of get used to it. I think it's unbelievable what humans can get used to. And it is sad as well. You'll see some people and it's like, why are you still here? They're like, where am I going to go? And some people just have nowhere else to go. I mean, I'd argue it's better to be in a ditch away from the bombing, but they'd argue, well, why? Like, if I'm going to die, I want to die in my home, And it's like, wow, that's a horrible decision you must have to think of. I couldn't even imagine, you know what I mean? So I've seen it a little bit, and well, I've seen it quite a lot, and you do realize, like, wow, like a lot of these people are just, it's their whole life, especially in the Middle East, where like they've grown up under war, that one fades, another one starts, another invasion, another war, civil war, invasion. It's like, it's all they know. So they're just like, I just get on with it, and it's sad as well to be like, wow, that's your whole life, to the point where it's not even that you're so brave, you stay there. You're just like, well, it's just life now, and that is actually mad, and there is an element to that in Ukraine as well, because it's been going on so long now. But the Middle East is where you really see a lot of that. People are just like, yeah, it's whatever. Like a friend of mine, I remember like about 2 years ago, she lives in Syria, like northeast Syria, in the Kurdish areas. Like I was talking to her, and like she just was like, oh yeah, and like my house got bombed today as well. Like I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, I forgot to mention, like the house, like a shell. Yeah, right, like a shell hit the side of the house, and like, oh, it's not too bad. Like it kind of missed, kind of knocked a bit of the. I was like, Jesus, could you imagine? You know what I mean? And it's just like, wow, that's really sad. But also like it just is life for them, So they don't see it as anything other than just getting on with it. And I think like people do it everywhere though. Like if you read it's not like specific to any. I think people do that. There's a good book by Sebastian Junger called Tribe, and he has a bit in it about when the Blitz happened in England, and there was this passage in it. It's been a long time since I read it, but basically the government at the time was like, we're getting shelled, we're getting bombed, loads of people are going to lose their mind, there's going to be insane mental health issues, so they kind of put a load of money to side for when that happened. And the opposite happened. So people banded together, and it got to the point where people that were once in the mental asylum actually ended up driving ambulances because they were just like, right, I've got a purpose. Now, I'm not saying we need war, to pull society together, but generally people do that. Even in the state of our country right now, I think you'd be surprised how many people go like, right, time to pull it together and work together to get this done, and I think that's almost like a human trait. Unfortunately, people living in war zones have to live that every single day, so they already know what it's like. But there is some kind of community that sort of kicks in. There is and there isn't. There's the side that become either like rats, traitors, or cowards, or they just want to get out, which is totally understandable. And by cowards, I mean people that like sell out their own people for like, I don't know, a bit of bread or whatever. But then you do have like the other side that are just like, everybody get together, let's just get through it. And that is like incredible to see. Like really, with my work, that's some of the stuff I remember like more and more. You're just like, wow, that was incredible how they just did that. And then they're like, people can be so good to you as well. You like turn up there and they're like, yeah, thanks for coming sort of thing. And like, you're like, wow, like if that was me, I think I'd be like, mate, leave me alone. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, like if I was like, well, I couldn't got invaded and some reporters like, can I spend a week with you? I'd be like, no, mate, like leave me be, But they just like, people are very understanding that, like, to make sure. I was gonna say make sure this doesn't keep happening, but it does keep happening. But I think people just understand there is a good reason to document this. Whatever happens, even if it doesn't stop it, it's just the bare minimum. It's like at least we're telling this story and it will last forever, even if the people don't or the war keeps on forever. There will be some element that's like, it wasn't all in vain, like these people trying to kind of fight against it.
The humble bee, a keystone species crucial to the survival of Earth's inhabitants. Here's how things would look if bees vanished. And here's how they'd look if humans vanished. But imagine if instead we became a keystone species by doing things the right way, by taking responsibility for our actions and becoming the solution. Iron mines the world's most responsible currency the right way. Because the future depends on it.
So when you come back and you hear, say here we have a mental health crisis, whatever that number was, 3.5 million young people signed off work with mental health issues. I mean, I couldn't help but think being signed off work with a mental health issue, being sat at home in your own thoughts, not doing anything with your life with a mental health issue is probably the worst thing to be doing with a mental health issue. And if you're out there in a war zone, you're seeing actually something has given them purpose. Does that make you reflect coming home?
Not really, because I think it's relative, like, I mean, I think the problem with the mental health issues is that it's become almost oversaturated to the point where certain mental health issues almost became trendy, and I think that oversaturated, whenever you do something like that, it makes people just go, oh, I can't be bothered when there's a real issue. Like if you're hit with something all the time and you're like, this is disingenuous, this isn't really as it is, I think people tend to just go, oh, I can't, I don't want to even listen. So if someone's like, I'm struggling with ADHD, you might be like, oh God, everyone's got ADHD now. But I know people with ADHD that it's really difficult for them, People say, I have it. I don't think I have it, but you know what I mean? I think I'm all right. But I kind of keep going.
I think you might.
I just move a lot, you know what I mean? But for me, if I do have it, I don't know. But I made it work for me. And there's people that can't, you know what I mean? And I've lost friends to it, I have a good friend that killed himself, and I do think sometimes you do need some kind of activity, and you definitely, I think like exercise is like, you know, and people say, oh, it's really cliche, but it's proven even scientifically that, you know, get up, do some exercise, join a community, join a combat sports gym, something like this. And I've suggested it to people that have then gone on and done it and be like, absolutely amazing, feel so much better. You know, you need community in some way. But I do think, you know, like I think our country is in an absolute wreck, and I do think that it is very serious, like the mental health issues. And I do think, unfortunately, it can get like waved off because some people, a very small percentage of people, but some people almost wear it as like a trend. And unfortunately, the way our media is and the way people are so reactionary now, they go, oh, look at this, this is woke or whatever. And it's like, all right, just relax with that, because there are so many people struggling. You know what I mean? Like where I'm from, man, I went back there the other day into my hometown, and like town is like Silent Hill. You know, it's like every other shop is either closed down, or it's a vape shop or a barber's or some other kind
phone
of
repair.
Phone repair, you know, all of these like I mean,
town centre's decimated.
It's money laundering businesses, half of them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not even just saying that. Like 3 of them got like raided the other day. Yeah, it's like, oh really? You're pulling in $100,000 a year in your vape shop. Like, I mean, vape's addictive, but I don't think it's happening when there's 5 on the same street. You know what I mean? So it's one of them ones where you go, even that, like you go about, and it's just like addiction everywhere, like very little opportunity. And because where I'm from in the Midlands, it's only an hour to London, all the yuppies have come and bought a load of houses in the little nicer areas, but then we get the worst of gentrification because we get increased house prices, but then they don't spend their money here. They spend their money in London or elsewhere, so we don't even get no investment. It's unbelievable. Like, it's absolutely mental. Like, when I go back now, I mean, it was never nice, don't get me wrong. It's known to be like, Kevin's a shithole. And I'm like, yeah, it is a shithole, but it's our shithole. But now it's just like, even I'm like, flipping hell, like, what has happened? And I think there's that issue where if you're constantly around like deprivation, I don't agree with this thing of like, oh, I'm just a product of my society, like blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of things going on that are very difficult for people, you know, like you're talking people, generations of heroin addicts, you know, mother puts the kid onto heroin, or there's child abuse has just been happening. Like, these people have got very little opportunity. And I am one sometimes for like, pull your bootstraps up, but
because you did it.
Yeah, but at the same time, I had a good family. Okay, like there's some addiction problems in my family or whatever, and I grew up this way and there was some issues, but I got a good family at the end of the day. Some people, like, they're just the core has just been burnt out for generations. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, how are they going to learn anything else? You know what I mean? If they're seeing all of this. And I think now we have this real callous side to our media and to our kind of like discourse where it's like, oh, you're just a loser if you're doing this, or like, you know, like, and it's really like, man, it's not that simple. You're talking about homeless people that are freezing to death. Oh, are they losers? Like, there's no compassion for that. Like, just get a job. It's like, that's like a literal line from like American Psychopath, you know? And I feel like that's like really callous. Then you have the other side where it's like, let's make excuses for everything, which again, I don't agree with. Some people will just always fuck up, you know? Some people are just pricks, you know what I mean? But in between all that, there's a lot of lost people that they're just getting no help whatsoever. You know, I mean, the food banks where I live, I know people that work 2 jobs and still have to go food bank. Like, literally, I know people like that. And it's like, they're good people, they're working hard. And it's like, what, are they losers because they haven't found an opportunity to make more money?
Dude, we made a film about inflation. We did it in Bedford and Harlow. Harlow was a real fucking hell. And interestingly, Kurt, I'll have to show you this. Someone's put a comment onto when I mentioned Harlow in a previous interview, and they're like, I've lived in my whole life, and they're talking about how it's gone to absolute fucking shit. We filmed at this old office block where they basically converted it into a house association apartments. It's just a zone of gangs, sexual assaults and drugs. It's horrific. I'd
love to watch that.
Yeah, it was a real eye-opener going there. And we went to a church where they had a food bank. I also often talk about this nurse who was there. She just, because of inflation, she couldn't make ends meet anymore. She couldn't afford a nurse. That's my mum was a fucking nurse.
Yeah, dude. One of the most important jobs in the world.
And dude, one of the people commented on the video, and because I shouldn't read the comments because half of them are like, Pete, you're a cunt. But One of them was loose and white
That's
fatty.
me.
Loose and white fat boy. But one of them was like, well, if she's a nurse, she can't afford to feed her family, then she's obviously not managing her budget well. And I was like, bro, I was there, I met her. She was a nurse, she was going to work. It was post-COVID. Inflation had just busted her budget. Have some kind of empathy. But at the same time, I'm like, I literally wrote down, you said this country is wrecked. Like, it is fucked at the moment.
It is.
I don't know what your kind of like general view is. There's this like half of you think I should just fucking leave and get away from this, or where's the stay and fight? Yeah, I think we've been so badly let down by the political class for 2 decades. And look, I think you and we're from different backgrounds. I know you're from like more working class background. Mine's probably a little bit more middle class, right?
We're from similar areas, though. You're down the road.
Yeah. Why are you skateboarding in Northampton?
Yeah. Radlands.
Yeah,
Love
Radlands.
Yeah, I used to skate there, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, as a kid, man, I loved it. Yeah.
No, I'm a bit older than you, so different times.
Yeah.
The Netto next door. We used to go in there. We'd go to that Netto and get a cherry aid.
Yeah, get a cherry aid and then go and skate for like 10 hours on sugar. Yeah.
But like, Bedford's got its problems, but everywhere's got its problems. But it does. I've got to this point, Jake. I just like the whole political class has let us down. Everyone's fucking let us down. It doesn't matter whether you vote Conservative or Labour. They've all fucking let us down. And I don't see a real positive outlook now. There's no one like Reform is saying some interesting things about making government smaller and reducing tax, fine, but I still don't fully 100% think they have the best interests of the country at heart. I certainly don't think Labour do, and the Conservatives are a mess. I'm like, where are the people we're meant to look at as inspiration? Who are we meant to look at and go, you're going to fix our fucking country? You're going to make the government smaller. You're going to reduce tax. You're going to create more opportunities for kids in shitty neighborhoods just to maybe play some sport. You're going to have that empathetic hand for people who've been let down by society. We're taxing people enough. Where the fuck's the money going?
Well, I remember reading that Boris Johnson bought an £8,000 coffee table in the middle of COVID. I mean, you and me paid for that. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. I kind of agree with you in the way that, like, I hate to be like so like black-pilled about it, but I don't really think it's gonna get better, and I'm not really sure how it is. I mean, my advice, like to like younger people, like in my family or whatever, it's kind of selfish and harsh, but I'm like, the way I'm looking at things, I'm like, look after you, look after yours. Don't get bogged down in the politics. Like, try and make your money and like get out, or just try and build something where it won't affect you as much. And I know that sounds like really like, oh, that's so like harsh, but what else are you gonna do right now? What you think like what you're gonna do, like start a new movement that's gonna take over and blah blah blah, like, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that are like super optimistic and they are trying to do that, and good, I'm glad. But for me, I don't think it's gonna work, and I hope I'm proved wrong, very badly hope I'm proved wrong. But it's just they have such a monopoly now on everything, and I think they've made it like the politicians have made it to a point where people are kind of just apathetic to whatever happens. You know, like the Overton window, as they say, has been like knocked out of the frame. Like, it's just anything can happen now. Elon Musk was like doing an actual Nazi salute the other day.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, people are like, it's actually not. It's like when you get to that level, when someone does like a full zig and then people go, actually, it's not that. It's like, you're fucked. You know what I mean?
So look, I like to think I'm not ideological in that, like, historically I'm a conservative, but I'm a small government conservative, low tax, not a snobby conservative.
Yeah.
Like my dad, working class conservative, he's like, let me have the party that gives me that taxes me the least. And so I'm not. When I look at US politics, I'm certainly not been a long-term fan of Donald Trump. I definitely didn't like the Biden administration. I thought, Musk is saying some interesting things, make government smaller, great. But when he
don't do it,
angrily grabs himself and puts his hand out like that, I was like, yeah, that's not cool. And even I don't know why. I don't know if he went out there thinking, I'm going to fucking troll the libs. I'm just
I think he was on drugs. I mean, he's even talked about before the amount of drugs.
You think he's on ket?
Yeah, I mean, look at him. He was hopped out of his mind. There's a great clip where he's just being this absolute buffoon of a man and Baron Trump, you know, like the kind of like chill one. It's just they're like, fuck it. Like you can just tell he's like, I cannot stand this guy. I mean, come on, imagine looking at that and going, no. Also, the context is important, right? As well, like for like over a year now, he's been like retweeting like
the AfD.
Yeah, exactly. So like what, like 3 weeks ago, he got behind like an extreme far right party in Germany, and then does that. Come on, you know. I don't believe he's like Nazis in like he's a national socialist. No, but he's just in that milieu of all that stuff, and I think he just let the shadow slip a little bit and was like, I think he like accidentally was like, like he put that out there. I think he admires the kind of might and like strength of like authoritarianism, and I think that's just a manifestation of it. I don't particularly give a fuck about American politics. I'm very tired of it. Do you know what I mean? I think that Americans think nothing else in the world matters, but unfortunately they are like the most powerful country in the world. You know what I mean? I just think there was a good article the other day. It was something about how like all these new powerful people are just nerds, and I think that is true. Like I can't stand Musk, I can't stand Zuckerberg. It's just like this horrible kind of tech bro kleptocracy taken over, and I think it's bad. I do think the only good from my perspective, from a selfish perspective, would be maybe there's going to be less censorship, but then I'm very like censorship absolutist. I don't think that, like now we're seeing there's actually some censorship for like the libs, and I don't like them either, trust me. I don't like the conservative. I'm kind of nomadically anti-authoritarian. I don't want to know, but yeah, you know what I mean? Nomadically anti-authoritarian, which is like the very cringe way of saying it, but like I'm kind of like, if you're doing some authoritarian shit on your left or right, whatever, I just don't like it. I don't want it. Like leave people alone, help people out, whatever. But you are now seeing already, like the other day on Twitter, Instagram, I think it was like hashtag Democrats was suddenly getting removed. Like you couldn't search it.
Really?
So yeah, and so it's like, okay, well, the Democrats, I think, are like especially the hardcore like Kamala libs, I think they're delusional and like pretty stupid. But at the same time, I don't want them to be censored, you know, nor do I want like some absolute scumbag on the other side to be censored. I think the world is better if you kind of, there you go.
Instagram hides search results for Democrats. Scroll that down, Con.
Yeah.
Right. Meta says it's working urgently to fix a problem with Instagram, which results in a results hidden message when users search for the term Democrat or Democrat. Hold on. Urgently to fix a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, surely that's
very coincidental, isn't it?
That's a quick fix.
Yeah.
Some social media users have accused the company of political bias, pointing out that the issue has been occurring after President Trump's inauguration on Monday, blah, 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 which Meta was, this is not the case, and it was a technical problem which also affected other hashtags, including a Republican one. However, social media expert Matt Navarro said it was embarrassing for Instagram regardless. I mean, the problem is we're so hyper-partisan now, it could be a bug. It might not be a bug.
Right, but
we
true.
Instantly think
But if that was hashtag Republican as well, I'd be the same annoyed about it. You know, I'd be like, right. I mean, my platform, my business, Popular Front, we've been absolutely battered by Instagram for like the last like 5-6 years, and now all of a sudden Zuck has like started BJJ and now believes in like manliness. He's now the other way and he's like, I'm gonna stop censoring shit. Like these people don't believe in anything. This is the problem. I don't think they believe in anything really. It's all a game to them, you know. And I think getting behind any of those people is like a huge mistake. Like just I don't know. I tell you, this is a kind of random one, but one of the most political things that I ever saw that was very non-political when COVID happened in my hometown, loads of local businesses, so the butcher, the greengrocers, some charity shops, some mental health charities, they all got together and they just started making food parcels for like elderly people that can't get out and don't have the money to order in or whatever, and they just started dropping them off. And it wasn't like some right-wing like thing. It wasn't some left-wing thing. There was no ideology behind it really, other than let's help each other out. And I was like, that's to me is way more interesting than like this shit. Like, you know what I mean? And I think so long as that keeps happening, there's some hope. You know what I'm saying? And like you just said, I love that. Of course, why wouldn't somebody love that? You know. But unfortunately, we do have a culture now that's brewing where people would be like, well, they didn't make enough money, so fuck them. Like, really? Like, fuck old people, like, stuck in their houses. What? Because they didn't make enough money. Like, this hustle bro thing, I think, is very dangerous. But then I also think the other side is extremely dangerous as well, to be like, oh, just rely on the government for everything. Like, everything else is someone else's fault. And then I also think the middle ground is dangerous as well. Like, so
everything's dangerous.
Yeah, I'm full of shit, basically. Like, but I don't think that is, like, such an insane way to... I think, like, most people generally... do think that way. Most people are kind of more like understanding them than you realize. It's just we're seeing everything through this weird lens of like social media now. Like I know lads at our Thai boxing gym. Yeah, there's a few lads there. The new lads, the lovely lads. But when sometimes they post stuff on Instagram, I'm like, oh my God, like it's just like some conspiracy. But I know he's a nice lad. He's got a very good heart. I know he's a bit confused. And if I've spoken to him like, mate, this is bullshit. Here's this and that. And he'll be like, oh, okay, right, cool. But if you didn't know him without the context, you might look at it and be like, what a scumbag. Da, 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 da. And it's like, actually, he's a good lad. He's just lost. Or he's just, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't have to really kind of go at people so much. I think it's just if we step back offline a little bit, it does help.
Well, we're in this hyper partisan world. So like,
so boring, I think.
There's some stuff I think Elon Musk has done good. I do. And I
yeah,
think
he has done some stuff good. Yeah, yeah.
He's
like,
really
no
interesting
doubt,
at some point. And this idea of Doge and reducing the size of government, I'm all for. Yeah, a bloated government destroys the lower middle class. And so I'm like, I support that. Good businessman, whatever. But when he does his e-card, whether it's accidental or trolling, whatever reason, I think it's pretty fucking dumb. And I was talking to Con on the way down because I said to him, one of the problems is that as somebody who's a conservative, old school conservative, just small government, I've got friends who are maybe more socialist, and I always want to try and explain to them why their ideas are actually damaging the people they think they help. Ultimately, you don't want to bring everyone down. You want to raise everyone up. And then somebody like Musk does that, and it makes it really difficult. It makes it really hard to try and explain certain ideas because they're instantly lost in this idea that everything there now is Nazi. You know, the veil's been lifted. We've seen what it is. And I'm just like, why do we have to do it? So I put something out. I put out a tweet, and you go through the tweets. It's like, and half of them are just fucking hammering me. It's a Greek fucking sign.
Yeah, it's a Roman salute actually. Like, where do you think the Nazis like got it from, and why? Like, come on.
Or he's autistic, or he's this, and then they show there was like a gallery of like Kamala and Obama also with their hands.
Yeah, but they're waving.
Well, actually, I saw the video. So somebody sent me the video yesterday of how their hands ended up in their position. They're very different. One was like that, just pointing. Another one was going like movement. It wasn't.
Yeah, no one went. Yeah, right.
Like
come on,
face.
Like, let's be real. Like, it's obvious.
But why can't it frustrates me. We can't have just a real conversation. Some people are so ideologically trapped that they've picked their team and they're going to defend their team, whatever, and they're going to repeat something else that somebody else has said and defend their team. It's like, how are we going to get anywhere when we can't have just an honest conversation? I find it, especially as a Brit, diving into American stuff, I'm like, I'm just going to get fucking hammered here.
But there is, I think you're quite unique in that, like I know you, if I was like, oh, actually, I disagree, I think this, you could be like, well, I don't agree with that, but you'll be fine. And like, I'll be fine, like, it's no problem. But a lot of people, they get like super angry over like quite small differences of opinion. And I think when it goes online, it becomes so granular that that's the only thing. But outside of that, I mean, man, as I've got older, I've definitely learned to just live with people that I don't agree with, you know, within reason. I'm not going to like be like hang out with some racist. Absolutely not. You know, like, I'm fully against that. But you know, it's like you can have friends that have the, you know, I got a Marxist friend, you know, and I'm just like, I'm always like laughing. I'm like, man, you're an idiot, mate. Like, and he's like, oh, you're an idiot. And we just laugh. We get on. It's fine, you know. I got a right wing friend. I got a left wing, you know what I mean? And it's like,
but that's quite a British thing.
It is, yeah. I think we're a lot better at dealing with this stuff than a lot of others. Like, I mean, I think we're very cynical, which is good. And it's like, at the end of the day, we've done a good job, I think, and I'm sure a lot of like people disagree, but I think it's quite clear we've done a good job at generally on such a small island integrating certain ideas, certain communities, whatever, considering where we were at like 100 years ago. Like, it's not been a disaster. I don't think at all it's been a disaster. It's not great, it's not perfect, but I think that's part of, like you say, it's like a British attitude to be like, well, agree to disagree, you know what I mean? And I do think that is falling away a bit, but unfortunately also like opinions are getting more extreme, you know, like you see people that are like, well, you know, you think, oh, he's a little bit right wing, he's like super this or whatever, but then 6 months later you'll find out that he's like, well, it's the Jews, and you're like, whoa, like where did this come from? Like, you know, and it is, I try and say like, oh, no one on people on the internet just think that, but like, if I am honest, you will see like there is no IRL, right? The internet we're like cyborgs now, right? So because with the phone and whatever. So it's like, yeah, you do see people like falling down this path. But I do think one thing I will say about the working class is, I think as a community, working class, we're a lot more, people are a lot more open to different viewpoints and different discussions, actually, way more than any other. I think I think it's probably the most open like kind of class. You can change people's minds. I know someone that was a leftist, then became a fucking far right guy, not a Nazi, but like a far right. Now he's like the total opposite, really spiritual, super lovely. You know what I mean? And it's like he went through all these horrible stages, and the reason he got out of them or whatever, or it's a good stage, is it a good place now, it's because people were like, whoa, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like we have like my Thai boxing gym, I've been going, it's like my home, I've been there since I was 14. We have every different type of person you can think there. And like, we're not sat there all talking politics. We're just being like, right, well, we agree on this. Let's just get on, for the sake of something else. And there will be no utopia. It will be boring, to be honest. But I do think that is unfortunately getting moved about a bit. We're getting more and more like America, I guess I'm saying. And I think that's dangerous.
Well, the media's dragging us into politics being all and everything.
Yeah.
But we're also in weird times. We've had our Southport riots recently. We've had we're in a time where I feel like this Labour Party certainly isn't a party for the working class.
I don't think any of them are.
Well, no, but like historically, we had George Galloway in that seat. A few weeks ago.
He's a nutter, though.
He's a nutter, but like I kind of respect him in that he stands by his principles.
His principles are awful. He was like best mates with Saddam Hussein.
I know, but like I'm talking about the British politics. He's always stood by the fact that he stands for the working class. Actually, stands for the working class. So I disagree with him, but I feel like the working class have been really left behind in this country, which is why I think Tommy Robinson has been so successful, because he's kind of one of the only champions of the working class that's been left out there. And I know you'll have your views on it. And this isn't pro or anti-Tommy, but I just feel like the working class has been so left behind. But I feel like we're being lied to quite significantly. Colin, can you go to my Twitter? I retweeted Silky Carlo this one. Do you know Silky?
She's amazing, yeah.
Fucking amazing. But I feel like we're going into this like much darker scenario. She tweeted this out. So there's enormous power grab today, with government publishing a new law to take money directly out of our bank accounts, revoke our driving licenses, constantly monitor the population's bank accounts, search houses and devices, unprecedented and outrageous. Labour ministers are selling this on the premise of the biggest fraud crackdown in a generation. It's actually one of the biggest assaults on our welfare system in a generation. It's part of a wider plan that's turning Britain's welfare into a digital surveillance system. Scroll down a bit more, Con. Blah blah. Okay, yeah, she wanted to get. Okay, couple that in with, I don't know, did you see Keir Starmer yesterday talking about what happened with the Southport murderer?
I try and avoid ever listening to him.
So he was talking about the dangers of online content. So I think there's going to be more crackdowns on there, but I just feel like in every direction we're being watched and cracked down upon. Yeah. And I think that's a problem for everybody.
We're like, Britain is one of the most authoritarian countries in the West, but people don't understand that or don't realize that, because they can say like, oh, this politician's a prick on Twitter and nothing will happen. And it's like, well, is that your only remit for freedom? Silky Carlo is great with it. Big Brother watched their action. I'm going to do some work with them soon, actually. And the problem is people just don't really care. And I kind of understand why they don't, because it's the same thing with like a lot of political stuff. Oh, why don't people care? It's kind of a privileged position to give a shit, Like there's a lot of people I know that are busting their ass doing like, you don't have time, mate. They're doing 50, 60 hours a week, earning piss all, and then they're struggling still. And you want them to understand this like very hard to decipher bit of like legislation that's going to really fuck them up in the future. People are living hand to mouth. They're not going to. And I think that's all. I don't think it's like a plan, but I think it's definitely really in favor of the government. I mean, if you look at the police crime sentencing in courts bill, it would make like authoritarian countries like Turkey or Russia blush. We have that now. We had like a week of minor protests over it, and most of them were just like protest that people went to so they could put it on Insta, apart from like a few like serious people in Bristol.
Dude, one girl went to jail for filming something.
Yeah, ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. Like, we are in a serious problem in this country where it will come back to bite us. If our country ever pulls its finger out and goes, we need mass protests, not for some bullshit racist that's trying to stir up the working class, not for something that's popular on Instagram, for some real thing like this has to change, everyone's going to jail. And they'll go to jail because we sleepwalked into legislation that completely allowed it. Under the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill, the police can disperse any protest depending on how loud it is. Now, it doesn't say what that constitutes. No decibel, nothing. You can be a one-man protest with a drum and the police can say, too loud, arrested. That's crazy. That's a similar law they have in Russia. It's a similar law they have in Turkey. And we are like this free country. Like, it's outrageous. You're getting people doorstepped for like having jokes and like not nice jokes, horrible shit, but you're getting doorstepped by the cops. Meanwhile, that nutter that stabbed those poor children was referred 3 times to prevent and was still out there. His dad was trying to get him sectioned. Yeah, his dad stopped him and still this guy was out there. And then you're talking about people that are getting like 5-6 years for like growing a bit of weed or something. You know, everything's topsy-turvy and it's very worrying if you look at it and you care about it, which I really do. Like, I feel like if you put a gun to my head, in a way, like an old libertarian mindset is what I have always had since the teenage years, not American libertarian where they're like, we don't like government until there's someone we like, then we love them. You know what I mean? I mean like old school proper libertarian where you believe in values, you believe in kind of some level of personal and local autonomy to get things moving, because what the hell does Westminster know about Northampton or Bedford? You know, nothing. You know, they don't care. So it's one of these ones where like, if you even give a shit about that, you should be very scared about this. And I do think a lot of people do care about it, but it's not boiled down into a way that's easily understandable. And I think it's almost made that way. It's quite hard to understand. Even the name of some of these bills, it's like, what? Like, I remember printing out the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill and just going through it for like an hour and being like, well, this is like madness. But it's so entrenched in like nonsense word porridge. And people don't have time that it just goes under the radar, man.
And who challenges it? There's not enough.
There's not enough. Or the people that challenge it are just like idiots that are like not challenging it from like a good perspective. They're just going like, oh, that's popular. Or see, you know, people think, oh, well, that'll get me retweets or whatever. Like, and unlike people like Silky Carlo, like them lot really are doing it from a good reason, you know. But it is. I think it's few and far between, and I think it's a really good thing to bring up, man, because not enough people understand it. You know?
I don't think we're far off more protests again, though.
Probably not.
Because we're not in a great position economically. We're not in a great position politically. And I think these are the things that are bubbling together, whereby if you've got no opportunity, and yes, some people are being stirred at under race issues, but we also have, you know, some quite severe scandals in this country. You know, the rape gangs is a scandal. We have had too many incidents of people who've been found to committing sexual crimes against children who seem to be getting more lenient sentences than somebody sent a tweet.
They are.
I mean, that guy Wayne, I can't remember his name, Wayne, who wrote that. He put the tweet out about saying this, Southport killer was a Muslim or whatever, and he's gone to jail for 3 years. I don't have the exact tweet. And then Hugh Edwards gets a 6-month suspended sentence for having category 5?
I think it's Cat A or Cat B. It's
whatever the number.
Serious,
All I know is like some sick shit on his phone, and he gets a 6-month suspended sentence. And this, you're starting to go, well, hold on a second. One's just a pedo nonce, and the other person at least is coming from a place of principle, and some of the tweets might be gross. There might be things you don't like people putting out there.
But you have to deal with gross people in society.
Here it is. So I love this. What do they say? Keyboard warrior jail for part of fucking BBC. A man who posted material on social media to stir up racial hatred during unrest across the UK has been jailed for 3 years. Wayne O'Rourke had more than 90,000 followers on his X account, posted misinformation about the killing of 3 young girls in Southport. When was this article put out, Con? Can you scroll up? No, to the other. 16th of August. Okay, so that is pre-knowing what we know now. Does it say what he said?
He's basically stirring up racial hatred.
Yeah, but what did he actually say? Right, so go back up a touch above that image of the burning car. Right, the court heard among posts on 29th of July reference to the death of 3 children. He alleged it was a terrorist attack carried out by a Muslim. A further post urged the people of Southport to get on the street. Others showed a picture of a County Road mosque in Liverpool and a picture of burning Khan Sunderland, which accompanied by a post that said, Sunderland, go on, lads. Another post, Starmer's basically said it's us against them, hold the line. Other posts read, numbers are important, give them hell, lads. I mean, look.
It's dumb shit, but why are you getting arrested?
Yeah, that doesn't feel like 3 months. I would much rather have somebody who's got
3 years.
3 years, sorry, 3 years. I'd much rather have somebody who's been caught with horrific child porn in jail than somebody who's clearly angry about what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's a dickhead, but like, whatever. Like, you shouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't want to comment. I don't know the full case of it, and I don't know the full case of Hugh Edwards, but I do.
The trend itself.
It is definitely true that there are very like lenient sentences for a lot of sex offenders, and somehow that opinion, or not even opinion, that fact has been turned into like a right-wing talking point, which is bonkers. Like, you're talking, I've seen people be like, oh, that's such a, oh yeah, you're getting very right-wing talking about this. I'm like, what?
Well, even
you're talking about children getting abused. Like, since when what has the political alignment got to do with like the victims of it, you know?
Well, look,
it's crazy.
Didn't Keir Starmer at the time when these riots kicked off, he said there are right-wing conspiracies surrounding this?
I don't know. There were a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, but they were. But at the time, when a young man goes into a dance hall and murders 3 young girls who are out there at a Taylor Swift dance thing, and it stabbed a bunch of others who didn't die, people are suspicious because of what's happened over the last couple of decades, where we've had various stabbings or incidents. I understand speculation. I don't think you should go to jail for speculation. You have to be able to ask the question. You have to have a free mind to think and ask the question. And
I think you should be allowed even to be an awful dickhead online. Like, as much as like I don't like that, I do think if you're constantly using like legislation and you're constantly using like literally the law to stop this, you end up kind of eroding what is a fast diminishing critical thinking already. You know, like, I think you should. You know, people say to us sometimes, like, why haven't you censored this? Why haven't you censored that? Someone said something awful in the comments. Stop reading the comments, firstly. Go and get a hobby. And secondly, like, you should have enough critical thinking where you go, well, that's really stupid. That person's a dickhead and they've said something horrible. I don't think that. And move on.
Very important that you don't lose this, okay? This is your inheritance through Bitcoin.
Let Bitcoin rip. Don't rip up your Bitcoin. Set up inheritance with Casa.
See, with our comments on YouTube, we approve them before we post them. Because of my background, we get so much crypto spam.
Yes, yeah, it's different.
And it comes in, it floods it. Oh, it's fucking crazy. So, but we approve everything. Everyone who cunts me off and says, oh, sorry, anyone listening, I shouldn't say the word. Anyone who slags me off and says you're fat, you're useless, all goes live. Even all the racist stuff. And the reason I publish and I post the racist stuff is because I want people who read the comments to know that we have racists. And I want them to know that for me is a problem. And you want people to see the entirety of the picture to understand the picture. Because if you have the whole picture censored for you, you don't really know what's going on. And I think the problem we have on this Labour government, which started under the previous Tory administration, is that we kind of they didn't want us. They didn't want us, the population, to be discussing these issues. They want to control it all. And now we're putting people in for jail for it. I just think I think we're in a really dangerous time, Jay.
It's a very slippery slope in terms of censorship. And I agree as well. Like, I come from the point of view that, like, the world is grim and horrible, right? You should be prepared for that. And a way to do that is to see how horrible it can be in what is arguably the safest way possible, just to comment on a screen, and build up your kind of resilience through that, and build up your kind of, again, critical thinking. And just, you really, it's better to have that there when someone's free to say it, rather than them sneakily doing it in the background. And then before you know it, they're in government with these horror, you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of it's not good, but it's just life. You know, that's just how it is. And I do wonder though, who it is that is calling for a lot of this censorship and whatever, because generally, you know, I mean, I've got friends from all different backgrounds, creeds, colors, like, you know, I have loads of black family members, you know what I mean? I'd never see like these normal people asking like, this should be turned off, this should be cancelled, this should be removed. It is a very specifically small, hyper online kind of people, to be honest. You know, I think sometimes we can, because we're online a lot, I think you can end up blowing it out bigger proportion. Generally, I think most people look at it and go like, "Oof, that's horrible," and move on. I do think generally, but
or even reply and say, "Don't be a dick."
Yeah, or something like that, or like, you know what I mean. But I do think sometimes it can be blown out of proportion, and I do think a lot of these like kind of hyper political grifters, whether it's left or right or middle, seize on this like small amount of thing to blow it up out of proportion to basically have something to talk about for weeks on end on YouTube. I do think there's a lot of bluster, but again, with the diminishing critical thinking, people don't even look at that and go like, well, actually, this is just a tiny thing. It just becomes everything now, right? It becomes the biggest issue because people live online. So I do think there is a little bit of like inflation in it, but at the same time, it is a slippery slope, like you're saying. And where does it end, I think, is the issue. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I find it so interesting, knowing all the places you've been to, riots, war zones, that you then say, you know, the UK is pretty authoritarian now. When you're comparing us to Turkey, which essentially is a dictatorship now under Erdogan.
I mean, I was in prison there.
Yeah, maybe
for nothing. Yeah.
Dude, that story itself is wild. But to be starting to be compared to there and to see the trajectory getting worse, I started to think, well, hold on a second. This country I think I live in isn't the country I think I live in anymore. And so I don't know how bad things get.
I mean, maybe I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but definitely the legislation is literally something you would see in a country. I think they actually have. I think Russia has like a very similar law to the police crime sentence and courts bill or law now. So I'm not being like hyperbolic in that. Like it actually does have like a very similar thing. I don't think we're anywhere near their level of authoritarianism like Turkey, China, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it starts somewhere, right? And it creeps in. That's the thing. It doesn't just hit you. In Turkey, it kind of, over the space of a couple months, it did really take a drastic turn. But over here in the West, generally things creep in, you know, like they creep in. You don't, before you know it, you're like, what? Like,
boiling frog, man.
Exactly, you know, and I do think that's something people need to keep an eye on. And that's why things like open discussions like this with people that disagree on things and whatever are like really healthy.
We might get arrested though.
But you know what? Yeah, you shouldn't be told like you shouldn't have said this. You can't say this when you're having like a pretty normal discussion, you know. And that's what you said. It's like before. I mean, like look at 10 years ago, you would see like the maddest things on like cable TV. Even in entertainment now, things are just getting so dulled down and boring. And it's like, that is a slippery slope and it does start bringing everything with it. I do think now we have the other side of things as well, which is, for me, I have this thing where it's like, I never want to see 2016 again. So 2016 was the kind of woke era, whatever people want to call it, hypersensitivity. Everybody's crying about fuck all. Oh, I'm offended. Tough shit. But then you also have the other side, you know, where these like right wingers are just trying to be edgy for the sake of it. Like, oh yeah, like saying all like racist shit. Like, yeah, cool. You're like a child. You know what I mean? And both sides need each other to live. And as that has died down, like the hypersensitivity is very clearly on its way out. Like people just, it's just boring. So people are like, right, you know, we don't want to live on eggshells. But then you've also got the other side where like idiots are just still trying to be like super edgy and like, oh yeah, like look at this racist meme. And it's like, grow up. Like you're both bottom feeding off of each other because you need a place to like stay relevant. And it's like, that needs to be left in the past. But because if you don't, again, you lack this critical thinking. You just choose one side or the other and just, you know, play tennis against each other. And it's not healthy at all. And it just doesn't move anything forward. It doesn't make anything interesting anymore. You know, like it doesn't make anything cool, to be honest, you know what I mean? And I think we're not only in a political kind of ditch, we're in a bit of a cultural ditch as well.
Oh man, I'm with you on that. So it makes me think it must be an interesting time for you to be creating content like
it's great,
this. Yeah. I was sat there the other evening, you know, sometimes just end of the day I'm knackered, I just want to watch something. And so I put up Sky and I look at all the recent series that have come out and all the things I could potentially watch, and there was nothing. And so I put on Netflix and there's nothing. And I go through the movies, I'm like, there's nothing I want to watch. And I've started to find there's there's very little things, and I don't know if it's me that's changed, Jake.
I think it's a bit of both, you know.
But there's not that much. I don't know. There's not that much interesting, edgy, pushing the boundaries kind of content. I think Hollywood is to me has been fucked since COVID. There's very
so boring.
The best film I saw recently was Kneecap.
Oh, them lads, yeah, I know them boys. Yeah,
Do you know them boys?
Yeah, really nice lads.
That's the best film I've seen recently.
Yeah.
But there's not many good films coming out. Certainly out of Hollywood. Netflix. To me, do you know what it looks like to me? All the streaming channels are completely algorithm based, and they know what people will watch. Just
what do they make money?
But it's like a numbing drug for most
slop.
people.
They call it slop.
Yeah.
It's like the best example, and I agree totally. Like what it is as well, constant demand. I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I don't know, but it's my theory. I think it's a bit of both. Constant demand. We need to keep churning. Good things can take a long time, often take a long time. But if you need constant slop to put out, I mean, Netflix originals is one of the worst things to ever happen to documentary making. It's just atrocious. They make really interesting subjects, like just about watchable, you know, because they follow this annoying template, and there's no effort. There's no like artistic element to it. It's just like slop it together, put it out. It's the sort of thing. I watched loads of them because I'm like, I'll put this on while I'm like filing my taxes or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's like documentary shouldn't be background noise, but they've become it thanks to, in a large part, to Netflix. And I think there's a problem where they're churning out slop, but also we have so much choice now that we don't know what we want, but the choice is kind of slop or like slop. So it's a bit of both. But then you do get a lot of there's a lot of amazing stuff. It's just a lot harder to find, you know, like independent filmmakers are making some really cool stuff. A friend of mine, he spent like 3 years making his own movie. It's called Mass State Lottery. And he sent me a screener the other day, and I was like, I've never seen anything like this. Like, it looks so original. It's so different. It's so nice. And so it's like, right, but that's took him a long time, and he doesn't have a lot of money to do it. So you just see it less and less. And they're not like Netflix. If they were smart, they'd be like, right, let's put tons of money into buying up like independent documentaries, films that are sat on the shelf, haven't found a place to go, or they're just going through the boring fucking film awards unit where no one normal is ever going to see it. They should go, right, let's just put a load of money into that. Instead, they're like, how many bullshit drone shots, talking heads, slop documentaries can we put out this week? You know, they're putting out documentaries, they're putting out a series. I saw a series the other day. It's a 2-episode series. It's like, and I realized the reason is just to get like the 2 hours. The thing would have been mildly interesting if they'd have took the 2 hours, cut it into a 40-minute one doc. But no, it's like, well, we have to keep the retention. We have to keep people watching. And it's like you said, when they're making things by algorithm, it's just death, total death.
Well, they announced today they're raising their prices in a number of territories. I saw that, and then
the audacity.
Well, no, but the interesting thing was they said they had 300 million subscribers. I was like, okay, just say it's $20 a month ish. I know it's not. That means they're pulling in $6 billion a month.
Outrageous. And you're telling me?
So they're pulling in. Say let's round it down because I've probably got 50 billion a year. Like, you can put some money behind some good independent.
Mate, $2 billion a year, you could fund everything.
Yeah, every independent filmmaker in the world. You could have a separate channel. You could have a separate feed just for that. But honestly, the amount of times I go on Netflix and I go swipe.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to watch another group of interviews with people on death row. I've seen them.
Right, yeah.
I don't want to watch any more of these sports documentaries because some of them were good, by the way. I really liked the Hernandez one. I thought it was good. There was one about a kid who took over a hockey team and got everyone to fight each other. That was really cool.
Yeah.
But now they're just, everything's the same.
Yeah.
I think the quality of Netflix, their own movies are fucking terrible.
So bad.
They're terrible.
So bad.
Yeah. And so I'm like, there's just nothing to watch here. I probably spend more time these days just on YouTube going down weird rabbit holes of, I don't know, football fights.
No. This is why I started this new series I was talking about, Away Days.
Is that about football?
No, it's not. So that's the thing. I know.
Yeah.
So the kind of misconception is it was. So when I first started out in journalism, obviously, like, I'm a certain way. You know, I don't come across perhaps as a different kind of reporter.
We got a trailer for it.
Yeah. You can watch it there.
Hold on, I think I've seen it. Stick up anyway. Let's let the guys see it.
For some reason, I just have this rifle. I don't really know what to do now. You want this?
Yeah, fucking love it. When's that coming out?
Thanks, man. It should be first episode should be in February.
Self-releasing or putting on any?
Yeah, self-releasing, completely independently. And the reason me and like my kind of Cody, like I work with all on this, Johnny Pickup, he's the guy shooting. It looks amazing. The reason we wanted to do this, I was watching a load of like old school stuff from like 2000s, like old documentaries. I was like, this shit used to be really raw, really like hardcore, no kind of airs and graces. And I was like, we need to bring that back. And I have like all this access into these weird kind of worlds. So I was like, let's make a series. It's basically just reporting from the underground, right? Like underground subcultures, countercultures, fringes of society, stuff that people are interested in, but they can't get to necessarily in today's world. I was like, well, I can. Like, I got really good access with things, as you can see. You know, some of this is mad. We've done like a week in the Brazilian favela. We've got a film coming out about the new generation of underground illegal street races in Japan. We got no rules fight clubs. You know, we're making one about the underground sex kink scene in England. Like, we got all this amazing access to stuff, and we're putting it out in a way that looks different. It looks beautiful, but it's our style. There's no edges will be cornered off on this, you know, and we looked at it and I was like, we got to call it Away Days, because when I started out in journalism, like obviously I was a little bit different, and I kind of got like pigeonholed into this like thing of like, oh, he's this like working class kind of guy, he's a bit of a hooligan, you know. And there's a really problem with like the media. They think like everyone that's working class is like a certain thing, you know, like, you know, I have family doing all sorts of different stuff. My dad was like a painter, you know, like he painted. It's like they think we're just at home like eating coal or something. Do you know what I mean? It's so annoying. But I found myself, I was very young and I was like in that world, and I found myself like really trying to change who I was. I was trying to talk really like very clearly, and it sounds so obvious in some way, old doctors, that's not how I talk. And my friends were like, what are you talking like that? And I was like, look, I don't want to be mugged off, man. I want to be like fitting in. And so when I decided, like, at some point, like 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, fuck this. I am who I am. I'm going to be who I am. Everything went way better. Everybody loved it. And I was like, yeah, just be yourself. And so when we named this, I was like, oh, right, you want to see like hooligan? We'll give you a hooligan. We'll call it Away Days, as in like, you know, when the hooligan goes away or like ultras go away. And like no one owns that phrase, you know, it's just like a concept. But our thing is like Away Days with Jake Hanrahan. We'll take you on a real away day. We'll show the people whatever. And I'm so excited for it, man. Like it's really amazing stuff. Yeah. And we've really, you know, there's some mad scenes we've got, man. We got chased by like the French cops. We got like in the middle of a gunfight in Brazil. Like, do you know what I mean? We've had like the maddest stuff, but we've met people that you'll never normally see. And we're not having any judgment either. We're just like, here's what it is. If you like it, you like it. You don't, it doesn't matter. It's happening and that's it.
Yeah, it's a lens.
A lens, you know, with a very stylistic, you know, I want it to look cool as fuck, as it does, you know. Why would you, this is the problem with media, man. They expect their audience, oh, you should just pay attention. No, man, we live in a day of like pizzazz, you know, give it some element, make it look cool, make it nice. And we have done this all completely independently, no money. We've maxed out like 4 credit cards. So we're hoping it pays off, but people are super hyped for it already. And they keep moaning, where is it? I'm like, mate, I'm at home editing it myself. Like,
there is a demand for it. Like I say, you know, I know you started out Vice and I loved Vice, and I think we lost some when Vice went woke. We lost something.
Definitely.
When Vice, you know, gave up, they just a victim of their success. We lost something. I don't know if Vice was probably pre you. You were aware of them, right?
Vaguely.
Yeah, vaguely. But there was, I mean, I should watch the North Korea one with you when Shane Smith goes to North Korea. There was 2 actually, weren't there?
The first one was the best one, I think.
Yeah, I quite like the one when he went up into Russia though, as well, on that train.
Yes,
he was drinking with those
Simon Ostrovsky. That's a great one. Yeah.
And then there was the Heavy Metal in Baghdad. Like these
classics. Yeah.
There was nothing like this when it came out. It was just like, wow, this is. And I don't mean it disrespectfully, but it reminds me of that. It's like,
no,
it's a window into a world we don't normally get.
Well,
What do you think?
Looks fucking sick.
Yeah.
See, that's the kind of, you're someone I want it to be for. This is another thing. I don't want to make any journalism for other journalists.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck what they have to say? They don't like me anyway, half of them. Fuck them. It's like, this is for like yourself, you know, like this is for just lads, young women, young lads, any, whatever. Just go, cool. That's cool. I didn't know about that. That's all you should be doing. Oh, I don't want to win the fucking awards. I don't give a shit, you know. I don't even get invited to these things no more. It's like that is a trap that you end up in as a reporter. If you start sniffing the ass of the next reporter, you're in bother. But you can do journalism in a really inventive way. Like, people will watch this that hate journalists and not even realize that this is journalism, because that's the way we've got access. I mean, look, we're with hooligans. Like, the second biggest enemy of hooligans is like journalists, right? Like cops and journalists. They love us because they are not stupid, or like, this is the thing. Like, a lot of these people are like doing extreme stuff, but it's because they want to live outside of society, or they're bored or whatever. They're not just like dumb robots. And, you know, you talk to them, you explain what you want to do, and they're like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, we appreciate the perspective. And they might say, oh, fuck all of this, fuck all of that. But what it is a reaction to a very boring world. You know what I mean? And I want to show...
Jake, that's the important thing. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
Is that if we dumb people down with shitty bland films, shitty bland documentaries, shitty bland, algorithm-based stuff on the social media platforms, and that's where they spend their time on Netflix or TikTok watching the same bland shit, they're not going to know to produce good stuff. They're not going to live a different life. You show the young people this, and you show them a different world, and then they're going to demand more of it. Exactly. And hopefully we get away from this bland shit.
It is possible. It is possible. And in a way, we use this slop generation to our advantage by being like, well, that's shit. Here's something good. You know, like we're basically saying, like, we're showing you real documentaries in the middle of a fake world. You know what I'm saying? It's like the real world is out there. It's just we've had something built up around us which is just boring, and it's just about algorithms. And yeah, I might go bankrupt with this. I probably will. I kind of am. But I won't be on my deathbed be going like, oh man, I'm gutted I made that and went broke. I'll be like, yeah, thank fuck we put that out there, because it will be remembered long after like Netflix slop. You know what I'm saying? And to your point about Vice, it's like, yeah, definitely. I mean, Vice inspired me. It's what I was watching when I was like 15, 16, you know, amazing. But Vice didn't create that. It was already there. They just like went there and filmed stuff. You know what I mean? It wasn't like Vice created counterculture. Vice didn't create sex. They didn't create fighting. You know, they just went, let's film this in a raw way, which, to be honest, I mean, they weren't the first to do it. I mean, it's a funny throwback, but if you ever seen Wicker's World, it's like some old school, like posh, like BBC reporter. He was basically doing Vice in the 1980s. Like he would turn up to like war-torn Haiti in a suit and be like, "What's going on here?" Like, and he was
a bit like Louis Theroux.
Yeah, pre-Louis Theroux, but not with the faux naivety of Louis Theroux. Don't get me wrong, I love Louis Theroux, but like a different style. But he was doing it, and I watched that as well. And then I read a load of books when I was like a teenager, like Holidays in Hell. It's like this reporter goes to all these war zones and writes the book as if it's like a holiday review, and it's like super interesting way of doing things. Evan Wright, God rest his soul, probably my favorite reporter ever. He sadly died recently. He was doing this as well in book form. So it's always been out there. It's just Vice were like the first to really blow up with it. So for me, I'm like, well, it's definitely, I've been inspired by Vice, but we're synthesizing something already out there. And our style is different as well. Like, I think it's very... like
it's more raw.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. But it's more raw, but it's also more stylized as well. Yeah. Like, I feel like we've left them behind. We've lapped them, definitely. In fact, now that they're coming back, they're like, oh, do you want to work together again? I was like, you know what? Why not? Let's work. Maybe we'll do something together, because like, you need me now. You know what I'm saying? Which is a nice feeling. But definitely, I got my start there and learned so much there and like really love it. But it's time, man. It's time. People, it's so bored, they just need someone to go, let's do it. You know what I mean? Maybe Away Days will blow up and it will be like the next Vice.
How much are Vice coming back? What do you know? Because I don't know enough. I've seen Shane Smith doing a couple of things. Is he back in it?
I think Vice News and Vice are now like separate. I think they're owned by separate entities, and this isn't any insider info. It's all out there if you read like the boring business pages. But I think that's, if I remember right, that's what it is. But what they're doing, there's two really good lads that started back at Vice UK. Is all I don't know about the US, but the Vice UK, two lads that were there back in the day when I was there, when I first started, even when I first started writing for the magazine when I was like 22. And they're really good lads, know what they're doing, and they've been kind of brought back in to be like, right, let's just start making cool shit again. Not necessarily go back to the old ways, but use the old essence of when it was really good and make it new again. So yeah, that's what they're trying to do, man. You know, I mean, It's probably bad for me if they do succeed because like as a competitor, but
no, but it could create
something really cool again.
Like what's that, rising tides, this all ships.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Like I said to you, I'm not fucking around. I go on Netflix, I scroll around, there's nothing I want to watch. It's bollocks. So I go on YouTube and I just go down rabbit holes. I mean, you're pretty similar, aren't you, Con? It's just YouTube rabbit holes.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube all day.
Yeah. It's the YouTube rabbit holes.
There is a good series though that I think kind of personifies how if you do make good shit, it will just cut through all the slop. You can't be drowned in the slop if you make good stuff. So there's a new series called Severance, right, on Apple.
Yeah, I know it.
Plus, and it's, if you watch it, I don't know if you like it or not, but it's very original. It's shot so nice. Every single thing has been thought about. There's like attention to detail is something I really notice because I make films. It's incredible. And it's like it's very hard concept to even explain. I can't really even explain it. And yet it's shot right to the top of the charts. Everyone loves it. Why? Because it's good. It's that simple. Make good shit. People will come.
At Ledden, we built the best Bitcoin-backed loan platform in the world. Proven, trusted, growing. Ledden's proven track record speaks for itself. Visit ledden.io/Mr. Obnoxious to get started. Ledden, there is no second best. Ledden is not regulated in the United Kingdom. Any credit products or virtual asset services provided by Ledden are not subject to UK regulatory protections. Please consider the risks associated with virtual assets and consult a financial advisor before making any decisions.
In fairness to Apple, they've actually done.
They've made some. Yeah, they're doing good. Yeah.
But what you notice is they don't produce a lot. But what they do is quite high quality. It might be consider slot, but I actually watched the morning show. And I
don't know what it is.
It was just a TV. It's about a TV station in America.
It's like a fictional thing, though, right?
Yeah.
No, I heard it's really good. Actually,
yeah,
I heard it's good.
But Jennifer Aniston's in it, and it's just And do you know what? I was like, this isn't my normal thing, but it was really well made.
Good, yeah.
And some of the films they've done are pretty good. But that's a typical Apple thing where they focus on quality and detail rather than quantity. I feel like that, and that's where they've done okay, but still there's not enough. I still think there's a market for this. By the way, what we should talk about, big up Donald Trump for one thing, for Russ Ulbricht. You covered Silk. I remember, I think that's how I discovered you.
Yeah.
You covered the Silk Road, but you covered it from the dealer's perspective.
Yeah, I actually went.
Yeah,
I went on a fucking boat ride across to. This is mad, man. So I did an article called "From the Mountains to the Mailbox." Basically, I was in contact with like a big deep web drug dealer, right? And I was always like the Silk Road. When I found it, it was one of the most incredible things. Yeah. I actually have. Look.
Wow, you got that's amazing.
Not because I love drugs. I'm actually like straight edge in that respect, but I just loved what it represented to me as a reporter at the time, and I really got a break with it. It's not like I love Silk Road. It's like reminding me of like that's how I kind of started separating myself to get ahead in journalism. Anyway, so I was like obsessed with the thing. I was like, this is incredible. It's like, is this someone made it just for me? You know, it's like secret internet, like crime. I was like so fascinated with it. And I was constantly trying to find like a unique story. And I got chatting somehow on the forums with this like, he was like a big drug dealer, but unlike a lot of the Silk Road people, he kind of produced it himself. So he had a place. And eventually after a couple years, I was like, let me come and document it. I want to come to where you are. We'll go to the site. And eventually he was like, yeah, fuck it. Okay, I trust you, whatever. So I flew out. I met him one time before and then like met him and then I had to go and then come back again for he trusted me. And then so we fly out like somewhere, I can't remember if I said the place, let's just say somewhere in Europe, not England, but like, you know, flew out. We met him and then, he was like talking about all of his business. And then we get on a boat and go to Morocco. And like we just go to Morocco and we drive up to the Rif Mountains, which is like crazy. It's like all the Berbers live there, like the indigenous people there. We're driving all the way up and like every like police checkpoint, he's just like shaking their hands. They're like, hey, good to see you, like, you know. And I was like, wow, this is really legit. Like this guy owns the cops in this area, which is very unusual because a lot of the Silk Road people were like very like, you know, like small scale, making a lot of money, but it wasn't like that. It was completely at home. So he was kind of in the streets and on Silk Road because he had like this libertarian ideology. And so we go up there, we go up to the top of the Rif Mountains and mate, honest to God, like thank God I have photos because you wouldn't believe it. So we go there and there's this like tiny house where these Berbers had like lived there for generations. There's this half-built hotel that has 3 walls, right? So for some reason, the main wall was all gone, right? So it's wide open. We actually had to sleep in there. And he takes me there and I meet all these guys. And these guys basically, he pays them to grow weed in the mountains. And so we go in there and he's just like literally, this is him, Patron.
This is it.
Yeah. And so this warehouse was just, if you scroll down, you'll see it was just piled to the roof with like bags of weed. But that stuff, green stuff, is like shake, right? So it's like all ground down. So it's like, I don't know, you need like 50 plants to get anything. Has all these blocks of hash, like, and like we're actually there. And then afterwards, we spent a night up in the mountains. And I remember, I've got a photo somewhere of it. Like we had to sleep in this fucking like hotel with like no wall. So we had these really warm kind of sheets. And then the next day we get up and I remember we were like, I guess it was just heavy fog, but it looked like we were above the clouds. So we're just, all you can see is the clouds. It's crazy. And then the next day he takes me down to like this little hideout he has, and this where he does all his business. So he's like, that picture with the knife in the heater, that's what he uses, and he cuts it up. And he showed me like, he literally logged into like Silk Road and was like, here's how we get our orders. And like, then he cuts it up, and then he printed out like a gym membership receipt. And then like, it was all, it just showed me the full process. And then I went home and was like, wow, like what the fuck? I was like 25, I think, when I did this, and blew my mind.
I was a Silk Road user.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was a customer. And I
just buying bubble wrap bags. Like, you just keep yourself safe there.
I think I'll be pretty honest about this. I was buying drugs on the Silk Road, but it was amazing because like, as a consumer of drugs, my son knows the whole story. If you're going to a Tesco car park and you were waiting for somebody, and I'll be there in 15 minutes, an hour later, I'll be there in 15 minutes.
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous. They never turn up and you don't know what the fuck you're getting. The Silk Road for me was incredible because you had to put an order in and wait a couple of days, but it would turn up bubble wrapped with an Amazon sticker on the front, which always killed me. And because of the review system, the quality was higher. I got a text from the we'll read that. Hold on, this is a quote from you. Generally on the deep web, everyone's trying to get along, he said. They solve their disputes through admins on the market. It's very civilized and very nice. Then there's the bulk drug transport business. This stuff happens outside of the internet. Think about it. That's been going on since the actual Silk Road. And it's ironic. All this started with violence, with the Opium Wars. And what you have, and now, without the deep web and the Silk Road, it all ends in violence. So I got a quote. I got the Telegraph messaged me this morning because obviously I've interviewed Lynn Ulbricht and communicated with Ross, and they wanted my views. And what I mentioned was the Drug Policy Alliance. I always talk about this. The Drug Policy Alliance said the great thing about the Silk Road is it reduced violence in the system.
Absolutely, yeah.
The war on drugs, the prohibition of drugs has utterly failed. All it's led to is exploitation, death, and destruction. Even worse now with this fentanyl crisis. Thank God I don't do drugs anymore. It's been over a decade, because you would be at that fentanyl risk. But you would be less so with the Silk Road because the dealers know they live and die by their reviews. That review system was genius.
Right, they're not good guys. They just know it's bad business to fuck about. Yeah. That's the thing. It was foolproof.
Yeah, it was foolproof. And it actually was it solved a lot of problems with drugs. And by closing it down, we reintroduced those problems. We caused more people to have impure drugs and to die. And so, look, the weird thing with Ross Ulbricht is like, he was, a lot of complaints about the way the trial worked and was treated. Lynn Ulbricht was very good when I first interviewed her. She said, look, time served is enough.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, time served is enough.
12 years, right?
It's done, yeah.
It's enough. It's enough.
But when I spoke to him, it was about 5 years. He got double life sentence plus 40 years for creating a website. He didn't sell drugs. But he probably committed a crime.
Of course.
Okay,
yeah.
Look, sometimes you commit a crime and you accept that it's a crime because you want to take that risk. Your whole life in jail? An absolute scandal. So that is the one area I'm like, go on, Donald Trump.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I couldn't believe it. And I'll be honest, like I'm kind of in a weird space where I'm quite against drugs. Like I don't like drugs. I make sure I'm not around people that do drugs. Obviously, I have been a lot. It's not like a judgmental thing. It's just a personal thing. Like if you do drugs, fine. Like I just don't like it. I don't want to be around it. It pisses me off. And I just find that I know a lot of people that have kind of lost their lives either literally or figuratively through drugs. So in a way, I'm like, well, I don't want to be anything to do with it. However, that's just my opinion. It's nothing to do with me. It's like the whole world is taking drugs. And like you said, the war on drugs, there is no war on drugs. I mean, if there is, drugs has won. It's a disaster. So why not make it a little bit safer? It's the same with like sex workers, like women that are like, working on road, like doing sex work or whatever, like whether you like it or not, if you make like parameters that help them, it's gonna make it a little bit safer. It's gonna stop them getting like killed, abused. You're gonna fuck up human trafficking if you know what I mean. And it's like, whether you like it or not, your moral whatever, it's kind of irrelevant if you're talking about wanting to reduce harm, right? So for me, yeah, when I saw it, I was like, wow. Like, firstly, it was just, you know, kind of a selfish, morbid fascination. Was like, wow. But then it was like, well, yeah, like there's a lot of people here that probably you could never quantify it, but it could have saved lives in that people didn't accidentally OD on street fent, you know? Unfortunately, there are some markets after Silk Road that weren't as stringent, and then fent started getting in. But no, I'm on the same page as you, where like, yeah, obviously he should have gone to jail if he committed a crime, whatever. For the rest of his life, for that, what are you talking about? Yeah. It's like, madness.
What service is being done?
And the reason, it was just punishment. That's all it was. It wasn't rehabilitation.
And a deterrent.
A deterrent, yeah, sure. But it didn't work because there's just been so many after. In fact, the ones that came after have been bigger than Silk Road. They're not as like notorious, but they've served more customers. Yeah. So what did you do? Nothing.
And some rug pulled. I mean, I remember
most rug pulled. Yeah.
There was like this sheep marketplace one that that I was aware of, and I remember when they rug pulled and they went off with like tens of millions of Bitcoin.
I think they're still at large. I don't think anybody ever found them.
But I was like, fucking hell, you're going to spend your entire life looking like this.
Because
there's some people who'll be after you. But I mean, I want the US government got 3 of my Bitcoin there still.
Have they?
Yeah, motherfuckers. I want
That's a lot of money.
It is now. It was like 80 quid a Bitcoin back there. But no, big shout out to Lynn Ulbricht. She's been an absolute warrior for the entire time.
Great
campaign. Campaign for him. Big shout out to my friend David Bailey as well. He's I think he's been encouraging Donald Trump to consider this. I think a lot of people have. So
Dread Pirate Roberts is back.
Roberts is back. I did want to ask you about Israel and Palestine.
Oh,
I know, but not a lot. Not a lot. Sure. But again, I followed it all with interest, and I've come to these kind of 2 conclusions. Have you been out to Gaza?
Been to West Bank.
Been to the West Bank. Right.
Sorry, no. Sorry, Jerusalem, East Jerusalem.
Okay, I came out with these. I've got these 2 points I've consistently made, and I've always felt they're reason one. I've had people yell at me a lot for it.
Yeah, people get super heated.
Heated. So the first one was that I think you can hold 2 truths at the same time. You can hold a truth that Hamas is a terrorist organization. They've been terrible for the people of Palestine. What they did on October 7th, was a horrific thing. Horrific. And at the same time, I can hold in the same hand that the treatment of Palestinians in Gaza has been horrific for decades.
Of course.
And I sit there and hold the 2 of them. And I say, I have no answer. I'm just a moron from Bedford. I don't have a fucking answer. But I can see both sides. And I've always been quite comfortable holding those 2 truths. And I've also been quite comfortable holding this idea that there has been an argument about what's going on in Gaza in the last couple of years has been whether it's been a genocide. I think I saw the other day 47,000 people have died so far.
Vast majority civilians,
of which we know many are women and children. Yeah. We've had the destruction of their education, health system. I mean, it just seems a horrific place. And my point is that whether or not it's a genocide, the fact that we're even debating it means people think it might be, shows that something pretty horrific.
Something insane is happening, right?
And I would see these simpleton takes come back. So you're a fucking idiot, McCormack. I'm not going to listen to your podcast anymore. All they have to do is release the hostages. And I'm like, have some humanity here. Just look at the photographs the photographs before the latest war were horrific. And now they've flattened other large parts of it. And I sit there thinking, where's humanity got to where you cannot just have empathy on both sides? Why in this one it has to be you're either a Zionist or you're a supporter, jihadist, a supporter of terrorists. Yeah. I mean, you probably know the situation better than certainly me than a lot of people. Where do you come to with this? Sorry to put you on this one.
No. I mean, it's pretty much the same kind of perspective. I mean, it's insane that describing 2 things can be bad at once is now suddenly like this thing you have to explain. Like, of course, like anyone that looks at October 7th and is like, cool, it's like, you're a nutter. Like you talk about old women just shot dead at the bus stop, like dragged through the streets. But then to go, oh yeah, but like it's okay, Gaza's fine, like equally a nutter. You know, our perspective was a massacre was committed October 7th, ours in Popular Front, and now there is a much bigger massacre happening in Gaza, but it didn't begin on October 7th. This is the problem. Like, as you just alluded to, the Palestinian people have been living under serious oppression for a long time, you know? But all of that aside, I'm very much in line with what you're saying. It's like humanity, right? If you're looking at these videos and you're seeing babies with their heads blown open, brains hanging out, whole families killed, and you're going, well, they should just do this, you got something wrong, I think. You know, to look at that and just your first immediate reaction is to try and score points on some kind of side, something very wrong with you. And it is definitely not a Jewish or Muslim situation like everybody likes to make out. Do you know how many like pro like Palestinian rights Jews there are? Like there are so many. There have been huge protests from like Jews saying not in our name and stuff like this. So then when it gets turned into that, like, oh, you're anti-Semitic or whatever, I think, no, that's outrageous. You know, I have plenty of Jewish friends, you know, like I have plenty of Muslim friends. I know that people say that, oh, my friend, but no, that's the point. Like you're around people. I don't hate any of them because of something that happened there. It's literally humanity, right? Like it's insane. Like it's absolutely outrageous. We interviewed like a number of people and every single one, like pretty much whole family gone, or at least most of it, you know, and that's in the space of like a year. And it's just unbelievable. And the fact that people are going, well, actually, it's just, I don't even have an answer. It's just, our perspective was very much, look, people, children are getting absolutely massacred. That's what we're reporting on, and that's kind of how it is. And, you know, if you want to then try and turn that into like a point scoring thing on Twitter, I think you're fucking psycho. You know what I mean? Either side, either way. And again, like, yeah, Hamas, like, I mean, I remember I was going to make a film in Gaza years back at Vice. It never materialized in the end. There were some issues, I can't remember what, but we were talking to like young lads in Gaza. And, you know, made pretty good friends with this one lad. And he was like, you know, he's obviously super pro-Palestinian. He is Palestinian. He lives under oppression. He's in whatever. And now he's in Gaza. And he was like, bro, like, they're a nightmare. Like, they're a nightmare. Like, they're a nightmare for people that want to be, like, free and do certain things. And, you know, there was anti-Hamas protests, very small ones, like 4 or 5 years ago. Just, what do you think happened to them? They just get shot. You know, I'm not saying, like, oh, they're the best. But then I also do understand the perspective. If imagine you're in Gaza right now, yeah? You're 16, 17, 18, whatever. Your whole family's killed. What do? You join Hamas. Like, not because you're this way ideologically inclined. You've lost everything. You're getting bombarded. You just go and you would, right? You'd be like, right, who's got the guns? Let me do it. Or you know, whatever. If you're that way inclined, you're going to join a militant group. And it's like, well, you can't then be like, oh, you guys, you can't have the like standpoint of it. Well, I'm thinking of things very like, very technically and thoroughly in the West, safe at my keyboard, when someone has just lost their entire family. Do you know what I mean? To some bomb that fell out the sky. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at it in the perspective of the people living there. You know what I'm saying? The same way I understand if you're in them areas on October 7th and your nan or your sister or whatever kidnapped. Yeah, absolutely. You'd be a nutter. You'd be like, fuck them. Do you know what I mean?
Glass it.
Yeah, I get it. It's awful. But I get it from that perspective. But when you're on the internet, safe at home, we have the privilege of having a little time to breathe and think about things and read the context. That's different. And if you're still acting like mad like that, I think it's just silly. And it's like, for me, again, it's like when civilians are getting killed, it's bad. That's kind of always the Popular Front perspective. Civilians getting killed, bad. you know, that's it, you know. And I think we hold true to that as much as possible. And I think a really good sign for us in our reporting on Palestine, Israel, is we're getting called jihadists and Zionists equally. So in my opinion, it's like either we're doing both things really badly, I hope not, but I think like you're probably doing something fair.
I think you're doing something right.
I think maybe.
You're
I
covering
hope so.
both sides. You're being logical.
Yeah, this happens there, this happens there.
Have you tried to get into Gaza?
No, you can only go in on like a IDF press tour, which for me is worthless because you just
That's like a North Korean tour.
Exactly, you know, and it's like, what's the point? You know, there is some, I mean, BBC did one and they were I watched it and I was like, this is pretty good because they were very open about like, this is just a press tour. They're not even letting us over there or see anything. And I was like, that's the only way you can do it. I did a press tour once in the occupied regions in Donbass and it was one of the best docs I've ever made because they were doing North Korea shit. Like they were bringing people out and like being like, speak to her. And like we spoke to this old lady that was like, oh, my house got bombed. And then I was like, is that your house? And she was like, yeah, like it wasn't a house, like, you know what I mean? Just like mad shit. Like, and so that in the end, we made a film about the absurdity of that, but you couldn't do that in Gaza. It's way too controlled. And also, like, they'd probably just take all your tapes, you know what I mean? So tapes, cards. I don't know if I'd be allowed back into Israel because they take quite a hard stance. If we've not like been against them as such. We've just been, this is the mad thing, like people say you're anti-Israel. I'm like, we have literally just said this is what they did. You know, and it's like, if that makes you like anti this, it's like, well, maybe you should look at what you're doing, you know what I mean?
Well, look, I'm a big boxing fan, and I'm not going out to any of the fights in Saudi.
Fuck that, yeah. They've destroyed boxing as well. Yeah, it's so boring.
They've utterly destroyed boxing. By the way, the weirdest one, was it the Dubois fight? No, which was the fight at Wembley where they had the Saudi national anthem?
AJ Dubois.
And they had the Saudi national anthem in Wembley. I'm like, what the fuck is
it's like,
come on, Eddie.
Yeah, I was going to say, none of these guys are from Saudi Arabia. Like, what the fuck?
Come on, Eddie, this is Wembley. There's no atmosphere. But even, you know, me and Connor got invited to go out to the Dubois fight. But I don't know if I turn up a Saudi and they check my social media. If they do, might have said a few things.
That's the thing, mate. I mean, that's what's ridiculous. Like, you know, you might go there all like innocently just to watch boxing, and before you know it, you're in prison as a political prisoner for some tweet you sent 3 years ago. I mean, I find it quite gross.
Because there's a lot of defense of the sports washing. That, well, we've moved on, like Saudi's moving on, the country's becoming more westernized. You know, it's good that they have the World Cup. We can bring them into our values. It's good.
I ask the women what they think there.
Well, that's the first point. I think that the bigger point is, if one of you or I or is scared, is not going to travel there, not forget the ideological reasons, because we think we might get arrested at the airport and thrown in jail for some of our tweets. Because I do know, as you know, going to certain countries, even America, before you go, you have to tell your social media accounts. Mm-hmm. Now, thankfully, America is, you know, it's got a semblance of freedom, so you don't have to worry about that. I don't know what happened in Saudi. And I'm, you know, I bought a Newcastle shirt. I got Khashoggi on the back. You know, I put that on Twitter. I don't want to risk going to Saudi.
You shouldn't go Saudi.
I shouldn't go Saudi. So I'm like, can we wait a second? I don't care if they want to get into sport. That's okay. You want to get into sport? Great. Let's have freedom first.
Right, exactly. When they've done all that stuff, then do it, right? Or just be honest about it. This is what bothers me, the dishonesty. Oh, no, they're doing this. And it's like, mate, go on Google for 10 minutes. No, there's not a lot they're doing, you know? And it's very minimal things. It's like, oh, they're really, really like revolutionizing things. What like letting women drive? Like, is it like that's some kind of, and I get it, it's got to start somewhere, don't get me wrong. But this idea that the West, that they're doing this because they believe in it, it's just because there's a lot of money involved, you know.
A lot of money.
And they're making it shit. Like, look at the Fury Usyk fight. Even the graphics, like the way it was on screen, it was amateur hour. The whole stadium dead. The stadium looked like, I've been at like unlicensed boxing shows that look better than that, for real, like actually better atmosphere. It looked so dead. No one there was a boxing fan, you could tell. No one gave a fucking shit. Mostly not, anyway.
Yeah.
And also, when you get in people like fighting men, they make their money fighting, and you're having to have them say His Excellency. For me, I know that sounds petty, but it's just like, you have just destroyed part of what makes this such a special sport, to me anyway. You know, you've got two fighting men that want to fight, something very natural that's in most people. It's been going on since the start of time, and now these tough guys have to say His Excellency about some guy who is just running things because he has a lot of oil around. You know, it's like, it just, for me, the whole vibe is off, you know, and I'm like, what the hell is going on?
It's killed an element of boxing for me.
Me as well.
Yeah.
It will always come back, though. There's always, you know, it does always come back.
Let's go to your call, man. All right, last thing, then I'm going to let you go.
Yeah, no worries.
You know, you've been covering war for a long time. I saw something interesting recently. I saw something on Twitter. They were talking about the F-16 is dead because of drones. The nature of warfare has changed. That what is the point of having F-16s when someone can send a bunch of drones over a border? I mean, we've seen these crazy drone shows in China, but that's almost like this like scary warning that this could also be warfare.
Yeah.
Has warfare fundamentally changed over the last 2 decades?
It really has. That's something that's really legit. I know sometimes I read things, I'm like, fuck off. And then I see something, I'm like, oh, all right. Like, yeah, legit. No, it really has. And I think it will never be that there's not a need for airstrikes or whatever, or fighter jets. But those fighter jets are going to increase technologically at the same speed at which the drones are, it will just be a complete techno nightmare. Do you know what I mean? And even when I first started going out like to frontline, so I was 24, so it was like 2014 when I first went to like a really serious frontline. It's in Iraq. Like we were in an area.
Was it the Kurdish region?
Yeah, we were in Kurdish region. Yeah, we're in Kurdistan actually, but we were like out. We were like in a place called Guer, and then we were in another place called Aski Kalak. So it was like outside of the region, staring right at ISIS. Like on the way, it was on the Mosul road when ISIS still had Mosul. So it was pretty hardcore. Not much actually happened that day, but like it was a pretty hardcore spot, and there was this like whirring noise. It wasn't a drone, but everyone was like, fuck. And that was like a long time ago. That's when drone bombs were just kind of getting like quite popular within, if anyone doesn't know, it's basically like a DJI commercial drone that you can get off Amazon with a mortar round attached and like a kind of improvised implement that when they fly over, they know when to drop it, right? And they called it the poor man's Air Force. And by like so 2014, that was, by like 2017, it was
holy shit, look at that.
Yeah, I mean that's literally, it's crazy, right? That's a big one though. I mean, I'm talking drones this big, like they have smaller mortars.
That is fucking wild.
So by
is that what they tried to get Maduro with?
A lot smaller than that. I think it was a kamikaze drone they tried to get Maduro with, which is again like a commercial drone, but just fly into someone and, you know, with explosives on it. And by like, so 2014, it was like people were worried. By like 2017, it's all people cared about, like all talked about, you know, everyone's fucking terrified. And it really created like this weird terror. You just see, and you just know, like, get down, get away. And that kind of thing, even psychologically, was very new in that respect. It's like, well, ISIS don't have an air force. We don't have to worry about the sky other than like, you know, firing mortar rounds, which they come, they're pretty inaccurate and you can move away or whatever. Fucking drones, they're watching it, you know. I think there's that like closeness of knowing the enemy is like right above your head watching you, you know. And now we're seeing it all the time in Ukraine. Now there is more technology coming out that then helps people jam them or whatever, but it can't keep up. Like it cannot keep up at all. And I know that drone jammers, specifically for volunteer units in Ukraine, are like a big deal. They need them because they're just getting hammered with Russian kamikaze drones. Again, it's like DJI just straight into it. And that's like a thing that has just never been that's just never been so prevalent, and it's never been an issue until like the last 5-10 years. It's
Dude,
crazy.
I've seen some of the footage where someone stood there and it's coming out and you're like, it's really real and it's fucking sad.
It's sad, yeah. It's sad. Even when it's like, I really don't like this thing when a lot of the Ukrainian footage, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like, you know, Russia's good or anything by any stretch, but when there's a lot of like this footage coming out where, you know, it's like a guy running from a drone bomb and they're putting like Looney Tunes music over it or something, and everyone's like, ha ha ha, Russian dead. And if you're Ukrainian, I get it, I'd be the same. But when you're like, again, if you're removed from that and you're still like sharing it around like trading cards for people that are at the desk and have never been to war, it's like, man, there's something a bit fucked up about that. And the irony is, it's people that previously were slating us, Popular Front, for showing things as they are. You know, we will show gore. I think you have to be shocked. You should realize how fucked up war is. So we would show war, or we'd put like lively music to a riot because a riot is lively. You know, we want to make the viewer feel as close as possible to what it is with the edit. We're not just putting footage out. We're trying to create a whole aesthetic. We're trying to create a whole feeling, right? And so they would slag us off, and then like, Ukraine war happens and they're like, ha ha, dead Russian. And I'm like, well, where's the decorum now, boys? You know what I mean? But it is actually fucked up because, you know, whether again, if it's your enemy directly in your country, I get it. You would be bloodthirsty, you would be cold. If someone kills your friend, you'd be like, good, I want to kill as many as them. I get that. But when you're removed, you're not even from there, and you're at the computer and you're just like laughing at some man's like desperate last moments, it's not good, man. I just think as a net overall thing, it's not good, you know?
Well, dude, I don't know how you're still alive.
I don't know. Like, I've chilled out a lot recently with the war stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, then you're going into favelas.
Yeah, actually, that was like
That's
really,
a war zone.
Yeah, it was. But it was really chill until like we heard some shots, and then everyone changed like that. Mobilized, guys jumping on motorbikes, get the gun, and I was like, oh yeah, shit.
Is it like City of God?
More depressing and more like tragic. But yeah, like in a way like that, yeah. And the tragedy is, even the gang members were talking to us being like, man, like this one guy was like, I tried to get out of this, I wanted to be a musician, and then I guess I didn't work hard enough and I'm back here now. And this is a guy who's like talking to us in a balaclava with a rifle, having taken us away from like the gunfight. And it's just like, it's really sad there. But the thing about it is, it's very different. It's not like all gangs bad. It's the people there were way more scared of the police, because in that actual favela where we were, Fallet Fogotero, I think 3 years ago, they executed, and I mean executed, 13 men, disarmed, on their knees, executed them and then put them in a bin. You know, so that's what you're up against. So it's kind of this one where the government has completely abandoned the favela. So the gang were like, all right, we're the government now. And honestly, like, Syria are brutally hyper, ultra violent. Don't get me wrong. But the people there are kind of like, well, it's a good job they're here. They built a sports hall, you know, they distribute food now and then. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of intimidation and whatever, but it's kind of better than nothing. You know what I'm saying? And these are shanty towns that were built by, like, you know, like slaves that the government just said, fuck off. And it's like, well, you can't do all that and then expect things to turn out normal if you don't provide. They don't provide nothing, right? There's like open sewers. There's, you know, they steal all the electric and the internet because they have to, you know. It's mad. I mean, growing up there, the average life expectancy in a Rio favela is 48 years old. And that's either you die of deprivation, gang shootout, killed in the gang as you're part of a gang, or the police kill you. You know what I mean? So, and now you have police militias, police that were part of it, and they were like, hang on, we can make more money doing this. So now they're a militia. And the kind of people were like, well, we'd rather the gang here because they grew up here, they know us, we've known them for years, than some external police militia moves in and just extorts everybody. So very interesting. I really can't wait to get the doc out. We kind of got every side. We were with the gangs, we were with people trying to do community outreach to like take people away from gangs, and then we actually went into like civilian houses, like, which you don't see a lot when you go to favelas. We kind of went there on the kind of condition we'd be there for like a day or so, spoke to the big boss, and after day one they were like, you guys are cool, you can stay for a week. I was like, brilliant.
Wicked. Well, listen, I don't know how you're alive, but the work you do is amazing. I've really appreciated having to know you over the years, but good luck with this.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I think you'll love it, man.
Where will people see it?
Hopefully, I keep delaying it, but it's got to be beautiful, you know.
Yeah.
So I think the first episode, it's nearly done. So once all the things are smoothed out, probably February.
YouTube, your website.
YouTube, yeah. So best thing to do is go to awaydays.tv. You'll see all the links there, and then. To be honest, the best thing for Popular Front is to go to our YouTube. That's the best stuff. You'll get a vibe for our work. So youtube.com/Popular Front, and then, yeah, everybody will see it.
Well, tell me when it's out. We'll pimp the fuck out of it.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Look, appreciate what you do. Keep doing it. Stay alive, man.
Yeah,
we need your work. Thank you to everyone listening. See you all soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, Jake.
Fucking
nice
good fun, man. Thank you.